Imagine going to a foreign country and not being able to communicate whatsoever. Not only is it a pain for you, it is a pain for the locals that you interact with. Communication barriers are such a struggle and cause many issues when traveling abroad. Now, imagine being in a business that requires you to work and communicate with people internationally. This is becoming more popular in the business world, yet people still do not know how to properly communicate with people overseas unless it is in the English language. This is just two of the problems Americans face when they do not properly study a language growing up. Requiring children to study a foreign language from kindergarten to 12th grade will not only help with communication, but it benefits them in so many other ways. Anne Merritt, a writer for Telegraph based in the United Kingdom, discusses several benefits associated with studying a second language. Learning a second language makes you smarter, more decisive, and even better at the English language. Physiological studies have shown that speaking two or more languages is a great benefit to the cognitive process. There are 7 cognitive advantages associated with learning a foreign language. The first being that you become smarter. The second being you build multitasking skills. The third being you stave off Alzheimer's disease and dementia. The fourth being that you gain memory improvement. The fifth being that you become more perceptive. The sixth being your decision-making skills improve. And finally, the seventh is that you improve your English. All of this happens simply from training your brain to recognize 2 or more languages. Olson and Brown are 2 scientists from the ADFL Bulletin, and they did a study about how high schoolers' brains are affected by studying a foreign language. They analyzed the American College Test, most commonly known as ACT scores, of 17,451 students applying for college admission. And they found that high school students who studied a foreign language consistently scored higher on the ACT English and math components compared to students who did not study a foreign language throughout their high school career. This helps to prove that when you study a foreign language continuously throughout your schooling career, it does help develop your brain and make you smarter. This is important for today's society because getting into college is becoming more competitive, and learning a second language can help the students keep up with the competition. Another group of scientists, P.W. Armstrong and J.D. Rogers, also performed a study on the advantages of studying a second language, but they did so in younger children. 3rd grade students were randomly assigned to receive 30-minute Spanish lessons 3 times a week for 1 semester. These lessons focus on oral skills and were conducted only in Spanish. Students in the Spanish class scored significantly higher compared to the group who did not receive instruction. They scored higher in the math and the language section of the MAT, which is the Metropolitan Achievement Test. This is of great benefit in today's society because math and science scores are in decline in the American school system. Studying a foreign language could be a possible solution to this problem. This will not only make American students more competitive with students across the world, but make them more likely to succeed as an adult. Leonardo de Vallos from Trinity discusses the importance of knowing multiple languages in different career fields. Earlier on, I discussed business, but there are many more fields to be discussed. For example, a doctor who can communicate with his or her patient in their native tongue is much more likely to have success at diagnosing them. A scientist or engineer capable of explaining his findings and ideas to his peers will be able to expedite and perfect their work, even if his peers cannot understand him in his first language. Any hiring manager in any company in the world would tell you that the ability to speak a foreign language is a prized commodity. Learning to communicate fluently in multiple languages provides additional job security and advancement opportunities in uncertain economic times. So now, I have discussed how being bilingual positively affects children, teens, and adults. As you can see, learning a second language truly does benefit everyone of all ages. The importance of communication is often overlooked. Despite our great prowess in communication, misunderstandings and mistranslations are a commonplace. It is very arrogant to believe that one can travel the world and expect all of mankind to understand his or her native tongue. In order to travel the world, whether for business or for pleasure, a desire and willingness to adapt to new cultures and methods is so necessary. Adaptability, of course, includes the ability to communicate with new people in various dialects. Being unable to communicate in a country is asking to live with a serious impairment. It is very difficult and near impossible to adapt and get along with new people if you have no way to communicate with each other. Language impacts the daily lives of members of any race, creed, and region of the world. Language helps us express our feelings, desires, and queries to the world around us. Words, gestures, and tones are utilized in the Union to portray a broad spectrum of emotion. The unique and diverse methods human beings can use to communicate through written and spoken language is a large part of what allows us to harness our innate ability to form lasting bonds with one another. This is what separates human from the animal kingdom. So, in order to prepare our nation's children to be the next generation of future entrepreneurs, doctors, scientists, engineers, or whatever influential job they choose, we must foster an environment from a young age that promotes multilingual learning. Through this, we are setting up ourselves, our children, and our children's children for growth, success, security, and ultimately prosperity. Therefore, it is up to you to create a warm and comfortable environment in which children can grow to learn the complexities of language. The communication skills that children learn early in life will be the foundation for his or her communication abilities for the future. Strong language skills are an asset that will promote a lifetime of effective communication. So let's make a change and require children to take a foreign language throughout their schooling careers. Let's give the children what they need to be successful. Let's make this necessary change. Okay. So it's like the discussion time. Do you have any questions?
I really liked how you talked about kids, teens, and adults, because I think that it set a foreground that starting young, like, will continue to provide success, like, through time. And I think that that's going to be a big change, of an instrumental change in policy, because then they can see that starting at the beginning is key to actually see results later on.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, is that, like, I'm trying to focus on the children, but, like, it really does affect everybody, because, like, the children are our future.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the major questions about this whole thing is going to be, what do you think is a good place to insert that curriculum? Is there anything that you think should be let out of the elementary curriculum, or some of the younger kids? Like, what do you think that should be in place of in an 8-hour school day?
Yeah, so I took language throughout my schooling career. Like, I started taking Spanish in first grade. So I think there definitely is time. I think it's just, like, we, like, have to make the time for it.
Sure.
You know? So, like, instead of, like, I know, like, in elementary school, like, if I didn't take a language, I had, like, extra, like, recess time. But so my mom made me take language.
Yeah, I've always wanted to, or I wish that I learned when I was younger, because of that critical period. Because it's just easier for kids to learn in elementary school than any other time. So it's really, I think, wasted time for them not to be learning something like that.
Exactly. So I think it's like we need to find the time to learn it. Like, we try to prioritize, like, English and math, but, like, I think, like, a foreign language would, like, extremely benefit everybody.
Definitely.
And it also gets harder when you get older. You need to have less time to try and learn a foreign language. You have a lot of free time when you're younger, so you definitely.
Yeah, for sure. Like, when you're younger, like, you also have, like, more like drive to learn something new, like, because you're, like, more, like, interested in the world too. So I think that helps a lot. And, like, your brain's still developing, so you're still, like, learning a lot of stuff.
Yeah, for my elementary school, I had to learn Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just wondering if there were any other, like, languages that are, like, higher prioritized. Like, I know Chinese is really hard to learn, so
yeah. So, like, when I did this study, I, like, was, like, reading through, like, a whole bunch of, like, online sources, and Spanish, French, and Chinese are the top 3 right now. And I feel like from, like being in college, I chose to speak Spanish. I want to go into, like, the medical field, and I feel like in America, that is what's, like, most highly spoken is English and Spanish.
Yeah.
And so I think when students start to develop up into earlier ages, that's when they can decide what language. But I think, like, starting with the basis of, like, Spanish or French, because they're so easily translated into other languages, is what should be learned first.
It's like you're going to start out with, like, kind of like a variety of different languages when you're younger, and then, like, as you progress, you know, possibly specialize.
So, like, Spanish and French are very similar. Like, if you study, like, Spanish and French and English, you'll realize, like, there's a lot of similarities. And so I think, like, starting out with those would be the best option.
I know that within, like, medical and police fields, Spanish is definitely the most important. But I think in the business realm, more Asian languages are important, and then French is more important in, like, the travel and everything, because I know in Europe they pretty much all speak a variation of Italian, Spanish, and French mixed together. And so I think that, like, when we grow up and later on, that's when you can decide, like, what you're using the language for, and then that can help kind of steer you in that direction. And I know Germanic languages all fall in line to figure out the Asian is a completely different story, and Chinese, Korean, all of that is very difficult to learn after you've learned a Germanic language.
Yeah, it really is. But like something like if you start young, like learning a language, your brain is like more easy to adapt to other dialects.
Mm-hmm.
Like, even if you like didn't grow up learning French, it's like easier to pick up on.
And also understanding like accents and whatnot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a big part is like when Americans travel, we kind of just assume like, oh, we're American, they understand. But like it's actually very rude and like disrespectful to like a culture to go in and expect them to conform to us. So I think that's really why we should do it.
What do you think about Latin being the dead language it is?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think Latin's like spoken as much anymore. It's definitely still a written language. I know like being in a lot of like upper level science courses, like we use a lot of Latin, but I don't think it's much spoken anymore.
Definitely seems like the benefit that's totally different. Like it's just a completely different skill set. It's not really communication when it's more of like a, you know.
With Latin too, Latin's the basis of French and Spanish, because English is Germanic in nature. But Latin itself is a silent language at this point in society. No one speaks it in and of itself other than using like simple words. Because we learned all this in my Spanish class. And so to learn Latin, if you learn Latin at a young age, you're able to pick up on Latin-based languages extremely easily later on. But learning it in and of itself just to speak, I know that it's a silent language at this point in our society.
Yeah. And like that's why I think like children should focus on like more of like the speaking aspects, because like that's where society's headed. Like we're headed more towards like communication verbally more than like physically. But I think it's been like time if y'all want to end it.
All right.
All right. Hi guys.
Who's going next? Who's going next?
I'll invite you all. I'll go.
Okay. Bye.